shine, shine your light. Shine, shine.
Hello, it's Nancy Smith-Maddox on WYTV7, broadcasting out of Charlotte, and I'm in Little Rock, Arkansas. My guest is in Washington, D.C. I'm so elated to have this guest today. She's an awesome, beautiful woman. You're going to really enjoy everything she's got to talk about. You're going to learn about resilience and reinvention. So I'm real excited about that. Before we get started, let me just tell you that WYTV7 is a nonprofit. We do take donations, and we appreciate every seed that you plant with WYTV7. What we do with the money is we broadcast all of our broadcaster shows, this one included, internationally. And we do have international viewers that watch our shows, so I'm so excited. And now a little bit about Shine Your Light radio ministry. What I do is I actually started Shine Your Light so I could have guests on here to let them shine their light. I want them to be able to shine their light to the world and help people. That's what it's all about. And I think you're going to be real excited about this guest today. So without further ado, let me talk a little bit about Dr. Donna Walton. She is from Washington, D.C. She is a published author. She has a PhD from George Washington University. Published author. The name of her book is Shattered Dreams and Broken Pieces. She is a reinvention expert, and I mean, when she tells her story, you'll understand what we're talking about. She's a certified cognitive behavioral therapist, and she's been with the government, the federal government in D.C. for 13 years. She has started 2 businesses, which I'm real excited about. I can only talk about the one that gives me the most joy is called Leg Work. Okay, and you'll understand why that's so humorous to me after we get to talking to Miss Donna. And then also she has Divas with Disability that's doing really, really well. So without further ado, let me let Dr. Donna talk to us a little bit. Tell us about your testimony, Doctor.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm just so happy to be here on this program today. My testimony is God's testimony, and it starts something like this. When I was 17 years old, I was diagnosed with bone cancer, a terrible bone cancer, and you're not supposed to survive from this particular cancer. And as a result of this particular cancer, which is called osteosarcoma, I had to have my leg amputated. And that began the journey, because my journey began because my dreams were shattered, because they had other plans, because I wanted to be a movie star. You could not tell me that I was not going to be a movie star. But they had other plans, and I had to shift my whole thinking, my whole consciousness, to let God order my path. And what my life has become today, I am an empowered woman who has just had many careers, has just understood that, you know, it's not about what happens to you, but how you deal with what happens to you. It's not about labels. It's about how you do the walk. And I am taking that walk today.
I love that. We're going to learn a lot. We're going to learn a lot about you today, and a lot of your sayings in your book, which I have it right here. I want to hold it up for everyone to see. It's called Shattered Dreams, Broken Pieces. And throughout this book is just a plethora of interesting that you make, pictures of you and things like that, and how you've overcome what happened to you when you were 17 years old. So we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit about that. I'm so excited. How has your faith shaped you, Dr. Donna?
Well, you know, my faith has shaped me because it has given me the strength. It has shown me that it's really not all about what I think, but it's what God has in plan for me. And it's so interesting because when I was on this journey in the healing, everyone around me wanted my leg to be saved. And that really wasn't what the goal was. The goal was for me to lose my leg, but to gain a life, to gain resilience, and to regain motivation, to be able to inspire others, to show that if just because you lose a leg, it has nothing to do with it, that you're much more empowered and more endowed with much more than our body parts. We're not the sum of our body parts. And the doctors and all the statistics and everything were against me. But I kept my faith. My faith has shaped me because it's all about belief. And it's all about knowing and understanding that I guess my journey was all about what God wanted for me. And God needed me to be here to tell everyone about my story, to give other young women and men encouragement. When you think that you're not going to make it, you can just draw in and have that faith. And faith is simply belief. It's belief and knowing that you can't see something, but you know it's there. You know that God's power is much more powerful than yours. And that's how my faith has shaped me, to give me courage and give me patience, and give me understanding.
Well, you sure learned at an early age that what was going to happen to you and what you had to do. I honestly believe that God did that to you to make you a better person, where you can relate to all of us that have these inadequacies and these disabilities, and we just don't think we can make it. So I always like to ask all of my guests, what role has God played in your life? I think I pretty well know what role He's played in your life because I've read your book. But I want you to share with the audience a little bit some of those things that God has done through you.
Yes. Well, I give all of the glory to God. God has, just put it this way. God was the total everything of what my journey was all about. When the doctor said that the chemotherapy was what I needed to save my life, God gave me the knowing to know that, that the chemotherapy was not going to have anything to do with saving my life. It was going to be that God that saved my life. When when people around me would call you names and just sort of want to take down your self-esteem, and, relationships were failing because everything was centered on me being an amputee and having one leg, it was God that gave me silence and gave me the ability to sit still and to know. And then all of the wonderful, I guess, gifts that I was given. And every time that, I would go to take a course, I would excel in those courses. And even though it was almost as that, even though God, even though I lost my leg, it was about, and I wanted to be this movie star. I was able to transform all of my strengths and my talents and use the classroom as my stage. So goodbye Hollywood, but my students became my audience, and my stage became my classroom. So my dream was shattered, but it was actually transformed, because it was transformed and translated to another dream, which was being an educator, an advocate, very talented, a speaker, so that I can have God's voice come through me and help heal other people. As I said, when you feel like you're just not going to make it, then you know that God is right there with you to have faith and to keep taking those steps. And that's what God gave me. Every time that I felt like giving up, it was God who said, take that next step. And each step that I took, it was success. When my leg was amputated, I had to, first walk with a cane. I had to be successful with that. And I graduated from a cane to crutches to now I have this wonderful prosthesis that allows me to be mobile. And so even though the disability comes with that, the term disability, I by no means define myself as disabled. And God has just given me that self-esteem. He's given me a wealth of confidence, and just, I think it's just an understanding. And at a young age, that was really important, because at 18 years old, you're going through many, many channels of identity, just knowing who you are. So with God being inside of me and knowing, I was able to just take my walk. Each step was ordered by Him.
Wow, that's such an awesome story. It's just so exciting how God took over your life and had a major plan. God has a plan for all of us.
Always.
Don't stop to listen. We just run off and do our own thing. So God stopped you in your tracks, literally.
Well, that's right. I wouldn't say, in the book I talked about how He sort of pulled me up, and He sort of stopped me right in my tracks, because I was going tap dancing, I was doing my thing, and I wasn't even thinking about the fact that my life could be I could die, because that was actually the prognosis, that I would not make it. And God showed me that if I gave my life to Him, in a sense, that I focused on believing that God was going to heal me. Because again, it's all about that healing. I should have named the book God is Working Miracles, because it was all about the healing of this cancer. When I was diagnosed with this cancer, again, it was late, and it was in my leg, and they didn't think that it was going to spread, and that was going to be the end of it. They didn't even think chemotherapy was going to be worth it, and so they actually said I had to take 18 protocols of chemotherapy. Well, one day I took 6, and one day I asked God, I said, God, if it's your will for me to be here, then this chemotherapy has to end. And so I don't give that prescription for anyone to stop chemotherapy if that is what they have to do for their healing. But for me, that was my journey. My journey was for me to believe in God, to trust God, and that was His way of showing me to disconnect from the chemotherapy, and I lived. I lived. I had 6 treatments of chemotherapy, and that was 42 years ago.
Boy, we're going to learn you did live by the time of this interview. I know in the book you were talking about an instance. You had to go apparently for testing like every 5 years to be retested for cancer.
Yes.
And tell that little funny story, what the doctor told you of how you were going to die before cancer.
Yes. So the protocol, and when I was going for the treatments, you had to go every 3 weeks, then you went every 6 months, and then you went once a year. And I had to go back to the National Institutes of Health for 21 years until one doctor said to me, the likelihood of you dying from cancer is greater than, is less than a jealous woman killing you. You probably can be killed by, and I really didn't understand that. I thought what was that really about? It's like, wow, why would a woman want to hurt me? And I think what that message was at that time was that I was going to be the light, the endowed in spirit that I would have would be, people would be jealous of that, because they would just not amazed. I had an amputated leg, but their spirits were amputated, and they would just be jealous. So I think that, and he didn't translate that to me, but in my book and in my thinkings, that's what I had to sort of derive to. Why would I be, envied? I lost a leg. Why would anyone want to envy me? But God gave me such a gift and such a power and such, spirit to be able to change other individuals' lives by showing them that you can succeed. And I have a quote that I use in the book. If what you want is not in door number 1, if what you want is not in door number 1, door number 2, or door number 3, don't give up hope. Knock a hole in the wall and make a new door. And so, this shows you God was just giving me all of these wonderful, ways of showing me that each time it was a failure. Every time I probably an interviewer or didn't get a job, there was a no. For every no there was, God would show that it was always a yes. So I was able to go on and get my bachelor's, my master's, and my doctorate degree. And this was all through the journey of healing. This was all through the journey of learning and healing, being sick. This was all through that. So I just never accepted no. And that wasn't me. That was God. That was really God working through me.
Well, I know in the book you used an example of a movie that Dustin Hoffman was the character in, and it was called Scent of a Woman. I will never think of Scent of a Woman when we watch these old movies again unless I think of you, because as I read that, Dustin Hoffman said, there is no prosthetic for an amputated spirit. And that's exactly what you're talking about. That's just so profound that you found that particular scent, that particular saying, and you've been woven that in the way you thought, your thought pattern too, because it's true. How do you fix an amputated spirit, or a broken spirit? You just have to keep going. You have to
have faith, and that's what it's all about. And you can't. I always say you can deconstruct or reconstruct an amputated spirit. Because you can reconstruct an amputated spirit through going inside, through being still, through knowing that God is going to order your steps. And I know that people think that that's so simple. They say, well, Donna, how can you just say believe? How can you just say take steps, be silent? Because it's a knowing, and it's almost like Every time there was a success in my life, that was my indication. Every time that there was a no, that came a yes, that was my indication. So, we can reconstruct an amputated spirit. And I have many principles that I've written, sort of outlined in the book. One is live your passion. Live out your passion. And whatever that passion is, live it out. Find it. Enjoy it. Don't make life just going through life on a day by day. Embrace it. Suck the juice out of it, if it's the last day. And I think that that's what God has just given me, this indomitable spirit to just live, because it just wasn't my time. We always say there's a time for us, to leave this planet. It wasn't my time. I have work to do. Yes. And that's why I'm so happy to be on this program.
Well, I'm still so excited that you're here. We have a lot to cover. But as far as passion goes, I always had a passion for my job. I was the CEO of a credit union in Jacksonville, Florida for 25 years. And my passion was helping people. So when I retired, I automatically acclimated to what am I going to do to help people. So thus, Shine Your Light came into existence. But I'm like, I always tell people, if you love what you're doing and you have a passion for it, then you never work a day in your life. And that's exactly how I felt. And I know that's how you feel too. So I'm going to ask you a few questions about your life and what you can share. As I read through the book, I saw that you were raised in a Pentecostal upbringing. So I want to talk a little bit about that. You talked in the book a little bit about it, and I want to know how you overcame that, because there's so much pity and so much guilt and so much condemnation when you lost your leg. I mean, even as far as people thinking that they demonized it. So tell me a little bit about how you overcame that. And I know it's all God that let you overcome that, because he totally turned everything around for you.
Well, I guess, first of all, let me just share that it was my mom who introduced me to the Pentecostal faith. Because at the time of the healing, or at the time that I was diagnosed with cancer, we were baptized as in the Baptist faith. And it was my mom, when the doctors gave us the diagnoses, that I had this terminal or this cancer that was really bad, and I would have to lose my leg. It was the Pentecostal faith, I think, that really just allowed me to kind of understand that that there are two forces, if you will, that are working. There's either the good force or the bad force. And that's how I sort of look. That's how it sort of, I guess, sort of brought me along in terms of understanding what was going to be on my side in order to help me. And some of the things that helped me was surrounding myself around people who really who believed, not so much believed in God. I mean, that's very important, but believed in life, believed in living and just not surviving. Believed that the outcomes of their lives did not have to be determined by their circumstances. That just because something happens to you, that does not have to be your narrative for life. That you can reinvent, you can retool, you can reshape, you can reorder your life just by being around the right people. They always say that there's like 6 degrees of separation sometimes between who we are and where we want to be. And, that became a part of my journey. So the Pentecostal faith was more so like an introduction of understanding the forces of life, what forces that were going to be to guide you. So, and how to stay away and take in. For example, another example is, during the time that I lost my leg, that was I was 18 years old, 17, I turned 18. And, it was the time when young, girls are dancing and they're dating and they're doing everything. And I had to really have a lot of introspection. I think the Pentecostal faith allowed me to be very introspective. It allowed me to be very mature. It allowed me to see the world for what it was. And I think that, it allowed me not to be so distracted. I'm glad that you explained that to me. I didn't really get that by scanning through the book, but I'm glad you explained that, because I too
I love Pentecostal churches. I love
Sure.
that is not how what I was raised in, but I do like it because there is freedom and there's happiness and there's just the Holy Spirit's real. So, and I mean that I imagine that helped you a lot having that in your life to overcome.
Well, and discovering that, to know the power of that, because as I said, the cancer, the Pentecostal faith showed me that there are definitely miracles, that that God is definitely can work out miracles, because again, the whole narrative was how you're not going to survive, and how you're, when I first got my first prosthesis, how you're going to walk, and how things were not going to be. But the Pentecostal faith showed me that God is in power, and all those things don't have to be. So every time that I lived, because as I mentioned, I had to go back to the Institutes of Health for 21 years. And each year I would go back, I'm looking to see that cancer was going to come back. But God showed me, and the Pentecostal faith showed me, that each year God's healed you. The healing has been done. Yes, you have lost your leg, but again, I gained my life. And I think that was the Pentecostal faith showed me.
Wow, that's fantastic.
It showed me that it was about life. It wasn't about the leg. It wasn't about the leg.
At 18, and this caught my attention too, at 18, you lost your leg to cancer, and it says you were getting off a bus and your leg broke in half.
Yes, it did.
Imagine the pain and the agony, but just really the shock of that. And you said, so the story begins at that point. So I guess at that point in time was when you were really starting to formulate Shattered Dreams and Broken Pieces, weren't you?
Absolutely. That was 1976. It was a cold, frigid day. And I had experienced pain in my leg. I mean, there was pain in my leg, but I never knew that it was going to be cancer. So this particular day, I stepped onto a metro bus. That's the bus that's in Washington, D.C. at the time. And my leg literally cracked. And it cracked because the calcium had just been depleted. And so the bone, it had no more support. And it was that last step. But it was also God's way of getting my attention. Because, of course, we had been in denial. My family had gone into denial because I had gone to the doctors at one point, and they did say, you have a growth in your bone. They never said tumor. They never said cancer. They always said growth. So my mom at the time, of course, was Pentecostal. She did not believe in, negative things like that. There's no way that my daughter's going to lose her leg. So, and there's no way that she has cancer. So we went into total denial until that one day I stepped onto that metro bus and my leg broke in half. Now, I just remember what was around me. It was, I remember sounds that were being made. It was that pitiful sound like tap shoes and pigeons make. Then, this is so, I'm so sorry for this person. And at the time I was sorry for me too, but I was pretty much in shock. But again, it was all about, I had no idea that the healing would take place, that the cancer would be eradicated from the time that it was discovered, the size of an orange, and then to the time that my leg was amputated, it never returned. And that was for 20, and each year, it's supposed to be after 5 years, then you have a chance of your post-cancer survival and your chances of being sort of cancer-free. Other years prior to that, you're considered in remission. Yeah. But I was always in this state of mind of remission until I got stronger in my faith and stronger in my faith, and just really understood that I'm healed. I accept the healing. And when I accept that healing, everything really started to open up for me.
And I love that. I love that story. We're going to get into that. It does appear that pain is the common denominator for everyone. And if we can grip a hold of our pain, and not just physical pain, I'm talking mental pain, family pain, whatever kind of pain we have, it is the common denominator that we all have that causes a lot of our problems. We have to rise up and try to take control of it and get over it. So it's the same thing about what you're saying. So in the book, you talk a little bit about triple jeopardy. Tell me what the triple jeopardy is.
Well, triple jeopardy is triple jeopardy syndrome, actually. And what it is that it's being black, female, and disabled. And those are the three sort of elements of my disabling, I guess, discriminatory factors that keep, I guess, women with disabilities, women of color with disabilities, at sort of at a disadvantage. And I'll tell you how they operate. And the thing about the reason why it's such it's kind of unfortunate for Black women in particular, because you never know which one of those variables are operating. For example, when I go into a job interview, and if I don't get that job, I never know if I'm not getting that job based on the fact of my color, based on the fact that I'm a female, or based on the fact that I have a disability. And typically, they always operate. So those triple jeopardy, you're always sort of at a disadvantage. They're discriminating factors that marginalize you because you have a disability and because of your color and because of your gender.
Thank you for sharing that with me, because as I read through and I heard, and I kept seeing things about triple jeopardy, I'm like, what? I was reading through your materials, I'm like, wonder what that is. That makes a lot of sense. It really does.
Yeah, the discriminating factors, and they're always sort of operating. And even today, they operate in your life because, unfortunately, our society has not advanced very far. Well, we have advanced far, but we haven't advanced far enough to let disability not be an issue, that we can just understand it as a human experience or a detail of our lives, and not use as a way of discriminating against us.
That breaks my heart too, because we've lived through that. I mean, I'm 65 years old. I've lived through that for many, many years. I'm thinking, when is it ever going to end? Because just because you're disabled doesn't mean that you're not a good person, you don't have a good mind, or whatever it is. So that's very distressing to me. But anyway, I want to talk a little bit more about the book now, some of my favorite things that I found in the book, and then we're going to talk about your two companies. You said at the age of 38, you started your doctoral degree. You became a doctor, and one of your sayings in the book is, I will be Dr. Walton for the rest of my life. I love that. And I think that's a great way that God is giving you. So you start on that, and that was your mindset going into this, because that's a difficult degree to get.
Well, yeah, not only, and I think, and I'll show you how that I knew that I had to declare that, because I declared that at the moment when I was interviewing for the program. I was discouraged. I was discouraged to enter into the program because it would take a long time. So, you had professors saying, the interviewer saying, well, this is going to take you, forever to complete this. And, just not very encouraging. So I said, well, time is going to pass, but I'll be Dr. Walton forever. So once I got that degree, the time won't even matter. The time won't matter. And so and that was my prayer. And it was a long journey. It was 10 years, and it didn't have to be 10 years, but I had to work. I had to work and go to school. So it took a while, and there were obstacles along the way as well, because I was still learning and getting used to me. My identity was in flux. Dating was very difficult. Forming friendships. Just getting on the journey of embracing disability as an identity. Because for a while, I didn't embrace a disability as my identity. I fought it. I used terms that somewhat made it a little more palatable, like physically challenged and, differently abled. And these words helped to just kind of assuage my mentality about who I was. But at the end of the day, I'm an amputee. I embrace that. And disability isn't a bad thing. It's not negative. So I had to embrace that, because I started to help other individuals, and I had to be that sort of example to show individuals that this is not something bad because you may, have one arm, or because you're blind, because you have a mental illness. These are not bad. These are just details of your life. And actually they bring great character to who you are. So it took a while, but I mean, I'm here now. And now I use my platform as the Divas with Disabilities Project, as you mentioned, to sort of talk about raising the awareness and imagery of women of color with disabilities, to show that we transcend our disabilities and to show what disability looks like, that diva and disability can sort of be in one person, that they can coexist in one person. And to show that society that, you know, you can be a diva and have a disability as well.
Exactly. And, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, as I read through the book, I'm like, just the little things that we all take for granted. I mean, you're going through a doctoral program, takes you a long time, but where did you park and how long did it take you to get up to the school? Or what if you needed a snack or something? I mean, there's no consideration for those kind of things. And, you know, unless you have a disability and you've been through that, we can't comprehend that. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yes.
That's why it's so important for you to get your book out there, get your companies out there, because people with disabilities need to hear this. Women of color need to hear this because
Yes.
there's discrimination out there. So I'm very, very excited about this interview, and I
Thank
can't wait
you.
for the world to hear it. Also, you had a White House visit. You were invited to the White House.
I was.
Good about that. You were on the national. You did the National African American History Month. You were a moderator of a panel.
I was, and it was phenomenal. It was during African American History Month, of course, during the Obama administration, and it was the first, actually, the first engagement of using disability as a topic in the White House ever. And so this particular, the leader at the time, who was in charge of community engagement, if you will, and integrating disability into the White House, asked me to be a part of this particular panel. And the panel looked at the intersectionality of being Black, you know, female, and disabled, and just looked at how, you know, all of these sort of marginalized entities of yourself integrate. And I had a number of people on the panel just talking about their lived experiences as individuals with disabilities. And this was very empowering. And it just showed that, you know, disability is not monolithic, and neither are Black people. And so it just showed all the intersections of all of our identities and what we're doing. And it was wonderful. And from that experience, you know, I was even called back to be a disability expert and a subject matter expert on accessibility, because, you know, getting around is really, really important. You know, individuals with disabilities, physical disabilities sometimes, most of the times, it's just a matter of having access to where you need to be. And some people take that for granted. I mean, such as a parking space. I mean, we may look at that as being such a small entity in your life when you don't have to use a special parking space. But it became major in doing my graduate program in particular, because I went to a school that was in the city, so I had to find, you know, parking spaces. But, you know, going to the White House and sharing, you know, it's always sharing the experiences of other individuals' walks of life. And I think it was a great event. It just wasn't my panel. It was my panel that I moderate, but there were several other panels that talked about mentoring and a lot of other areas around disability that don't really get discussed. Fashion even. Okay.
How exciting is that when you're a 17-year-old and you lose your leg, and now you're in the White House? Oh my goodness. That's just like, I mean, it's just like God had this plan for you that just all fell into place.
It all fell into place. That's
Yeah.
true.
Okay, and I'm going to make a statement. This is a question, and I want to know, what's a leg got to do with it?
Absolutely. And that's my motto. Yeah, absolutely. What does it have to do with it? And I think that I make that point to show that it's not about your body parts. You know, and I'll use that to set up a story. It came about because a female rival said to me, you're less than a woman because you have one leg. And that's how that emanated from I don't know, it came out. I'm like, well, what does a leg have to do with that? And it became a motto to live by when individuals sort of discredit you and reject who you are. As a woman, what does a leg have to do with having a child, being a mother? It doesn't have anything to do with that. What does it have to do with love? What does it have to do with religion? What does a body part have to do with it? So you can put anything in place of a leg, and what does it really have to do with it? And that's what my mission is, or one of my missions, I should say, is to get us on a path of thinking about what does it have to do with it? Why does that even matter? And to show you how internalized these things are, when I taught school. That was one of my first careers after I decided I wasn't going to, well, I didn't decide. After God had a different plan and path, that I was not going to be in Hollywood as I thought I was going to be. I was going to be in that classroom, and I was going to be an educator. I had a student who said to me one day, he was about 7 years old, and he said to me, "Miss Walton, no man will ever marry you because you have one leg," right? And so at the time, of course, I was paralyzed by his thinking. He was like, "How dare you?" But I thought deeply about his statement later, and I realized that how these thoughts and attitudes are internalized at a very early age about women and their abilities and their image. And so if you don't have a leg, that it already devalues you as a woman, and you can no longer be married, and you're not worthy of love. And so those attitudes have to be changed very, very early in life. And Absolutely. So of course, that's part of my journey, to educate, to inform, to show up unapologetically in examples, so that if an individual sees me, I can serve as that testament. It's like, well, wow, she's doing this. And it's a lived experience. It's no big deal, people. It's really no big deal. A leg has nothing to do with it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, we're running out of time, but I do want to very quickly mention one thing. My favorite picture in this book right here is the one with the motorcycle.
Yes.
Carrying your prosthesis on your shoulder, and you're walking with a motorcycle.
Absolutely. Is that powerful?
Fantastic.
It's a powerful statement. That was a part of a photo shoot, actually. And the reason why we wanted to give that imagery, because we wanted to show first of all, we wanted to show, that we transcend, again, that my disability transcends all of that. And why not? Yes, I can ride a motorcycle. Sure, I can. And my prosthesis is strung over my shoulder to show that it has, again, the leg has absolutely nothing to do with it. It has nothing to do with it. And Absolutely. So it was really set up in an article to define normalcy. I think the title of that article that picture was used for is, does it really matter? Or something about normalcy. It was like defining normalcy. What's normal anyway? Right? Exactly. So that picture just set it up everything, because
it did.
Wow. We establish our normal. Like this my life that I live now as a one-legged woman, as I say, is my new normal. It's my new normal.
Absolutely. And you're doing a beautiful job of it. I'm so excited that you're helping so many people. In closing, I just want to mention that Dr. Donna has 2 companies.
Yes.
One was formed in 2006. It's called Leg Talk, Lessons of Empowerment for Achieving Goals and Greatness.
Yes.
And we're not going to have time to get into that too much. And then your second one, which is your Pride and Joy, I believe, was in 2012, which is called Divas with Disability.
Yes.
I want everyone to please go to Facebook and look up Divas with Disabilities. You can hear a lot more about Dr. Donna. And it just simply says that divas and disability go together. They just And I'm going to have to close out, Dr. Donna. I want to have you on again so we can talk more about your 2 businesses. It's very exciting to me about your book. And also, I want to just say again that we're on WYTV7, a nonprofit, and we do take donations. So if you so desire, please plant a seed so we can make sure all of our broadcasts go internationally. That is what we use the money for. And again, I thank you so much, Dr. Donna, for being with me today. It's been a pleasure and a joy.
It's been a pleasure.
So much about your book. So
thank you very much. Thank you very much.
I appreciate you, okay?
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Take care.
Shine your light. Shine. shine your light. Shine, shine, shine your light. Shine.